How's it going, everyone? This is How to Happy, and I am Dono. In this video, we're going to talk about a way to block out some negative thoughts, and that's by stopping yourself from thought spiraling. A series of thoughts similar to this might sound a little bit familiar to you. I'm going to fail my test, and then when I fail my test, I'm going to fail the class. When I fail the class, I'm going to have to drop out of school. When I drop out of school, my parents aren't going to respect me anymore. If my parents don't respect me anymore, no one will respect me. I'll never be able to make any friends. No one will ever want to hang out with me, and I'll just be alone forever. I'm so dumb, I never can do anything right. All right, so I may have greatly exaggerated the speed at which this process happens, but a lot of times we find ourselves with one smaller problem that creates a negative thought, and then we let that negative thought kind of ruminate and grow and chain into other things that we're worried about or afraid of until before long we have these incredibly grandiose negative ideas that are about our self-worth, and we just feel so gross and like we can't accomplish anything. Occasionally we'll look back a day or two later and wonder why we were in such a bad place over something so small, and it's a little thing that I like to call thought spiraling, which is allowing one small negative thought to grow and grow and grow and grow until it really debilitates your entire mood for a period of time. Thought spiraling usually starts with one little negative thought. So for the example that we used before, I don't know if I'm prepared for this test. And that's the key moment where we've now opened the door to further negative thoughts. So it starts with, I don't know if I'm prepared for this test, and that quickly turns into, I don't think I'm going to pass this test. Before long, that thought trails into another thought, and suddenly you have, again, these big, really negative thoughts about who you are as a person and your entire character that all started from one small negative thought. With each negative thought that you allow to happen, it builds steam, right? Your brain gets more attuned to looking for negative thoughts, and you're looking for reasons to prove yourself right because we have a natural confirmation bias. So suddenly we have this one problem, another thought, another thought, another thought. We remember this thing and this thing and this thing. And again, we're into this very negative place. And once you're at the bottom of one of these spirals, it can be really difficult to pull yourself out. When you're at the bottom of one of these spirals, you can be stuck there for a while until someone snaps you out of it or an event happens that kind of changes your perspective. But there are a few things that you can try. First, you want to challenge the assumptions that your mind is making. Like, pause for a second, take a step back, and ask yourself, is this realistic based on the situation? If you're in the middle of one of these funnels, you might have a thought like, I said something weird to one of my friends today. They're never going to talk to me again. And if you pause for a second, step back, and think about really how likely that is, you realize, one, that you may be in one of these negative thought spirals, and two, that it's probably not as likely as you think. Often just challenging these thoughts is enough to kind of snap you out of one of the spirals. If you recognize that you're having these really negative thoughts, you can also try framing it as exactly the opposite. So if it's, a really negative thought, you can say, okay, what would be the opposite of this? Now, that might be something really ridiculous, and it might feel ridiculous to even think about, but a lot of times it can also snap you out for that exact reason. This can work in one of two ways. One, it can show you how unrealistic the thoughts are, right? If you have the super negative thought of, oh, I'm going to be alone forever and no one will ever like me, and you switch that to the opposite, which would be like, every single person that I ever meet will love me forever. Like, when you see the scale of the thought, you can kind of tell how unrealistic it is. Another thing that's going to do is once you start with, one positive thought, it works the same way. It's easier to spiral in that direction once you've already made some momentum. So going exactly the opposite of the negative thought that you catch can help you break out of spirals sometimes. The biggest benefit, however, is once you see each side, hopefully it will bring you to a more realistic middle ground so that you can have a perspective on the situation that is actually real. Getting another person's opinion can also help a lot. So if you have someone that you trust, that is supportive, that's going to listen to you, and bring them in and tell them basically your thought process or the way that you started spiraling and all the types of negative thoughts that you've had, a lot of times if you know someone like this, it's really easy for them to say, well, wait a minute, you can't say that you're a bad person because you might not be ready for this test, right? For them, as an outside perspective, it's going to be really easy to say, these two things aren't even connected. I don't know why you're letting your thoughts spiral like this. Also, if you catch yourself in one of these negative spirals, you can try to just redirect your attention back to the primary focus. So if you're in this kind of, no one's ever going to like me, and you realize that you're at the bottom of one of these spirals, you can try and just cut all that middle stuff out and go back to, okay, I'm feeling a little unprepared for this test. What can I do to solve that problem? That technique can be a little bit harder though if you're at the bottom of one of these spirals and don't have a lot of practice being aware of your thoughts and trying to redirect them. The most effective strategy that you can use is to just practice awareness of your thoughts so that you can catch these spirals right at the start. Because if it's, one or two thoughts in and you go, oh, wait a minute, I'm having these really negative spiraling thoughts that may not even be connected, then you can redirect yourself back to something more productive. But when you're at the bottom of one of these spirals, it's much harder to bring yourself back into a more actionable state. It might take some time, but the next time you catch yourself with these spiraling negative thoughts, just try to replace them with something more realistic and actionable. It's gonna be a habit that you have to build, because if you're not used to being aware of your thoughts, then a lot of them are going to slip by. Even if you are used to it, a lot of times these thoughts are going to slip by. But the more you practice, the more you're able to direct how you're thinking about yourself, especially. All right, let's move on to the exercise. This is going to be a little more difficult than normal. However, you can still practice blocking negative thought spiraling by becoming more aware of your thoughts. If you want to practice, a good way is to set a timer for random times throughout the day. And when the timer goes off, it's a signal to check your thoughts. So if you catch yourself with a negative thought or spiraling, replace it with something more actionable. So basically, set a timer. Every time the timer goes off, check your thoughts. If it's a negative thought, try to replace it with something more actionable and realistic. As always, if you have any questions, comments, topics you want me to cover, leave them down in the box below. That's all I've got for this video. I will see you next time.
You can check out more content at howtohappy.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you can stay up to date on the videos. We've also got a Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook that you can check out. Reflect, take action, and enjoy life. See you next time.